Good evening, Winnipeg, and welcome to another edition of Mike Vogiatzakis for Mayor Live. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Tonight, we're looking ahead to an important press conference that Mike will hold this coming Friday at 11 a.m. at Winnipeg City Hall. Now, Mike's going to address several issues that affect people across Winnipeg, from photo enforcement, the way permits and bylaw enforcement are handled, electric scooters operating throughout the city. You know, at first glance, these may sound like, separate issues, but they all raise the same fundamental questions. Is City Hall treating people fairly? Are the rules clear and reasonable? Is enforcement actually making Winnipeg safer? And does City Hall remember that it works for the people, not the other way around? Mike believes leadership is about knowing the difference between right and wrong, listening to residents, and having the courage to challenge policies that are not working. Tonight, we'll give you a preview of Friday's announcement, explain why these issues matter, and hear directly from Mike about the kind of City Hall he intends to lead. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more after this short break.
At ASAP Auto Glass Winnipeg, we know you need it repaired fast. That's why we do all the work, from contacting AutoPack and starting your claim to replacing that broken windshield. We make sure your visit is carefree with quality service you know and love. From automotive to industrial, we replace and repair. From cars, trucks, and SUVs to industrial glass, we get the job done right the first time. At ASAPAutoglass.com, our website has all the answers you're looking for when repairing or replacing your automotive glass. Winnipeg Auto Glass Repair is ASAP Auto Glass. Experts and fast. Book your appointment today.
Well, welcome back, everyone. The Mike Vogiatzakis for Mayor Show. Mike, great to have you on board tonight. Busy Wednesday. I know the whole week's been busy, and the weekend was just as busy with not only your personal life, but your work life, and then obviously, running for mayor. It's got you running in all kinds of directions, and, you're a busy man, and I know you don't get a lot of sleep. So let's talk about your health. Are you in good health, Mike? Do we need to do any kind of get you to go to the doctor like they did with Biden, for example?
Geez, you know what? I can tell you, this is the busiest I've ever been in my life. It's pretty crazy, really intense. I was on a funeral service today, and then that lasted pretty much the day. And at 4:00, I was at a team meeting with my team, and then at 5:00, we met with some other people who are part of our team also. So it's been a crazy day, and then getting ready for the show, and then doing the show, and then it's one of these times where it's go go go. But I love it. It keeps you busy, and it keeps you looking young like this.
I got to be honest. It's sort of like running the DJ company back in the '80s when we had 100 different gigs going on a night, where you're doing high school dances to the bar mitzvahs to the socials. I mean, what a life we used to live. And I know you kind of worked from 8 o'clock in the morning right through until 8 the next morning, almost every single weekend. And I know you're going to give that same kind of attention and effort to this mayoral run as well, not to mention that if you become mayor, when you become mayor, I better say it properly, when you become mayor, I know you're going to give it all the attention that it deserves, and you're going to do the right thing along the way for Winnipeggers and just neighborhoods throughout the city in general. So, Mike, we've got to say hi to some of our special viewers tonight. And I don't mean special in a special ed kind of way. I just mean they're special because they're always here. Gord.
Quite a few people there.
Welcome back, Gord. He's got 8 beers tonight, so that's enough, for me and a couple for you and maybe a couple for our guest. We got a special guest tonight coming up, too.
Yeah, and Steve Bage, the one and only Steve Bage is on the show. He says, good evening to all. Mavis, good evening, Mavis. And she says to Mike and Brad, real change now. Mavis has been a real strong supporter of the show at every one of the meet and greets and helping us in any way that she can. Thank you, Mavis, for that. Also, Debbie replying to Steve. Hey, Steve.
What about us, Debbie? Kwan?
Yeah, Debbie. And then there's Daryl on the show. Hi, Mike. Let's make it happen. I know, right, Daryl? Let's make it happen. Mike Chevy. Mike Cherry, I got to meet Mike Cherry at City Hall. Hopefully he'll be there this Friday, too. Really nice guy, that Mike Cherry. And just a good guy, really informed of what's going on in city politics and the bus system. So hopefully we'll see more of Mike in the future.
I see Al Bueller's with us tonight. Al, good evening, everyone else watching from my home near Beausejour, as always. And he says, how the hell are you, Mike and Brad?
Well, we're doing just fine.
Hopefully you are too, Al. Hopefully you are too.
A whole bunch of new people on the show today, and it's good to see that. So we got to tell you, as we go through names and talk to people, you're going to love this show tonight, because if you got a photo radar ticket in the last little while, or if you think photo radar is more about money than it is safety, we're going to find out tonight, as soon we bring on a master law student who has his law degree. His name is Chris. Brad's going to introduce him. We're going to play a commercial before we do that, and listen to this commercial. It's important because it's the way you can help the Mike Vogiatzakis team to become the next mayor of the city.
We'll be back right after this.
Winnipeg, real change doesn't happen on its own. It happens when ordinary people stand together and demand something better. The Mike Vogiatzakis for Mayor campaign is powered by the people of Winnipeg, not political insiders or powerful special interest groups. Your donation will help purchase signs, print campaigns, materials, reach more voters, and carry our message into every neighborhood across the city. Every contribution, large or small, brings us one step closer to a safer, stronger, and more accountable Winnipeg. Please donate today at MikeForMayor2026.com. Nothing changes until something changes. Real change now. Authorized by the official agent for Michael Vogiatzakis.
And this is where we get you to donate. Today you can receive a $100 city rebate. Cost only $25 just for donating $100. The city will give you $75 back. So make sure you support Mike, support his campaign. It costs a lot of money to make all this happen. And Mike, you put together a very strong campaign. I've seen some of the other, mayoral candidates' campaigns, and they're not nearly as strong as what you've got. Obviously, donations are starting to come in, and things are, being laid out where, you're going to be able to obviously have to pay all of your people along the way, because you can't get signs for free. You don't get billboards for free. You don't get decals on your truck for free. It all costs money. So, supporting you is something that Winnipeggers can do to make sure that change happens on October the 28th during this next mayoral election.
Without money coming in, you just can't win the election. Sure, social media is great. I have a great following on Facebook and on obviously social media, but not everyone's on social media. Not everyone can see what we're doing, what we're saying, or what our plan is. And we do have a plan. Probably the only mayoral candidate that does have a plan for transit, for public safety, for all kinds of things that are going wrong in the city, including what we're going to talk about tonight. So support us if you can. It's pretty simple. Like Brad said, it's only $25. You get $75 back if you donate $100. Guess what? Tomorrow we're having another meet and greet. And we've
Yeah.
been coming to your neighborhoods, and we love coming to your neighborhoods and talking with you and getting to know more about your neighborhood and more about your community and what you need and what we can bring to your neighborhood when we get in that marriage chair. Tomorrow we're coming to Transcona. A lot of people have been asking us to come to Transcona, so join us at the Pandora between 6:30 and 9:30. There's seats for approximately 200 people. It's going to be a fun night, another meet and greet. Hopefully we get a lot of new people out. There's a spot where I speak, and there's a time where you can ask questions. So if you have a question, write it down, bring it with you, and I will answer your question on the spot tomorrow. September 1st, we're going to the Pony Corral on Pembina Highway, Pier 7. You can meet us there, and it's going to be a meet and greet like probably no other at the Pony Corral. Peter Janakis is going to be our sponsor, our guest there, who's going to take care of us. So looking forward to going to the Pony Corral September 1st. So tomorrow, Pandora, 6:30 to 9:30. September 1st, Pony Corral, 6:30 to 9:30. If you want us to come to your neighborhood, send us a message. MikeForMayor2026.com. We respond to all messages, and we are willing to come into your neighborhood. We're planning. This is going to be a good one. We're going to plan to have a big hot dog barbecue, hamburger, hot dogs, whatever, at Happy Land Pool. Because it used to be a place where families could hang around and have lunch together, a barbecue, a hot dog. It's a special family time together. So we're going to get together somewhere in that area and talk to the people in St. Boniface and bring back the memories from Happy Land Pool. Are you ready? Are you ready for us to bring on our special guests?
Absolutely. Let's talk to our wonderful guest tonight. He's a Master of Law degree, and we're going to welcome Chris Swareda. Chris, are you with us?
Hi there.
From Manitoba. Just waiting for his camera to kick on.
Chris is a very interesting guy, and he's very, very well equipped to talk about, photo radar and talk to you about radar and school zone and all kinds of stuff. And there he is.
There he is.
Chris, you're looking pretty sharp tonight, almost like a junior lawyer, I would say.
Appearances can be deceiving.
Chris, maybe you could tell. Why don't you tell our listeners about yourself a little bit and what degrees you have and how you could talk to us about photo radar and your experience and your background in doing this.
Well, my undergrad is in sociology, but I've got my law degree, and now I'm doing my master's of law. I was Jason Schreier's executive assistant for 3 years at City Hall, and I've been a guest lecturer at both universities on traffic safety and issues with traffic enforcement for about 10 years now, and I've written many articles, done a lot of research in this topic, been to traffic court many times. I've done charter challenges on on traffic law, many successes. So I've been involved in this for probably a good 16, 17 years.
Wow. So the big question everyone has, the big question I have, so is photo radar really about safety, or is it a money grab? A lot of people ask this question, and you're just the right guy to answer it.
It's often, I know this is going to sound a little extremist to say, but from what my work has shown, it's actually in many cases at the cost of safety. Many people perceive photo radar as being safety neutral. People say, well, if you just slow down, you won't get a ticket. And, what's wrong with ticketing speeders? And even if you talk about speed limits being improperly set or signage being improper, people think at best it's just, or I should say at worst, it's just safety neutral. But there's many cases in my work where I've seen the city use inadequate engineering and defend it. And the photo radar provides that incentive for the city to fight to keep that revenue at all costs. So just to give two examples, when photo radar came in Winnipeg in 2004, the yellow light times were shortened at high-speed intersections. So that increases crashes by several orders of magnitude, like 3, 4, 5 times, increased ticketing 600%. But of course, shorter yellows increase deceleration rates, cause people to slam on their brakes to avoid getting a ticket, and that causes many crashes. To give you a second example, Winnipeg is was and still is in some respects the only city that doesn't follow national engineering standards with respect to speed limit signage. And more specifically, the city wouldn't put speed limit signage on both sides of divided roads, but they do it for every other sign in the book. And I remember meeting with the city councilor. We were discussing Grant Avenue, and I finally just got so frustrated. I said, "Look, we're debating putting a sign up on a boulevard here. It says $200. Like, why are you fighting this over? That's the price of one ticket." And she says to me, "No, it's not going to cost $200. That one sign is going to cost me about $2 million. So you tell me where I'm going to make up $2 million in lost revenue. Maybe I can get you that sign."
Wow. You know, a lot of good points you brought up there. Another point that I want to talk about, and this happens all the time, you drive down a construction zone, you see a bunch of pylons, you see a photo radar vehicle, but you see no construction workers. And in many cases, those zones have been empty for months. Like I'm talking literally months. And that ticket machine is running up those totals. And, you know, Chris, when a family is struggling to put food on their table and they get a $200 or $300 or $400 ticket, that really sets a family back. So how fair is it that, you know, empty construction zones and photo radar giving tickets? I understand 100%. You know, if it's construction worker safety first, absolutely. But if there's no construction workers on the scene, how's this fair?
Well, let me give you a tidbit that most people don't realize. Manitoba changed the law in 2014. This is when they claim that they doubled the tickets in construction zones. That's not what actually happened. The tickets were doubled in construction zones in 2004. They were doubled when speeding past workers that were active. But nobody ever got a ticket for it because the photo enforcement and the police made a strategic decision that it's not worthwhile to enforce with workers present. So nobody ever even knew that that was the law. Now, what happened in 2014 is they changed the law to apply with or without workers present, but only in these new designated construction zones. Designated construction zones are defined as construction zones that are long-term. I believe it's defined as more than 48 hours, 72 hours, somewhere in there, on a paved road with a speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour or higher. It's less than 5% of construction zones. So what they did is they raised the ticket fines, doubled them for speeding without workers present in about 5% of zones, and actually lowered the tickets in the remaining 95% of zones with workers present. So like a road like Pembina Highway, that's not going to be a designated zone because it's a 60. Before 2014, if you sped past a worker, you'd get a double fine. Today, you'd get a regular fine. They actually lowered the fine for speeding past workers in 95% of construction zones. People don't even realize that because photo radar is targeting these cash spots. And this started in 2008. That's when the city changed the bylaw to actually lower the speed limits without workers present. So that's when it began. And that increased the ticketing in 2008 by 3 times when they with that one little change to make speed limit reductions apply without the workers. But the problem for the city was without the workers, you couldn't issue a double ticket. That's when the province stepped in and changed the law in 2014, but only in the small number of construction zones where photo radar was enforcing. In short-term zones, which are actually more dangerous because they don't have planned out traffic control, they don't have like detour routes, all these different safety mechanisms. Those are actually some of the most dangerous, and they lowered the fines in those zones. But photo radar never enforces in those because photo radar plans out their enforcement and sits in them for weeks at a time. They're not going to go follow a work crew around and sit in the zone for their 2 or 3 day project of changing a culvert, even though those are much more dangerous sites.
You know, a lot of good points here and stuff you would not even think about. But obviously you've done your research. You know, something else people talk about, I think about this all the time. There's, zones where you see school zones, for example. You know, they have a school zone or they have a playground zone, and it's 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, it's 40 below outside, and there's not going to be a kid in the playground zone. And what kids out at, 10 o'clock at night playing on the swings in 40 below weather? They're not. But photo enforcement is there. How is this even legal to do?
That's one of the problems we have in Manitoba is our laws are very weak. And I remember arguing against the city at the engineering board, the Association of Professional Engineers, about the city using inadequate speed limit signage. And one of the issues that came up is the city actually had to admit that the signage was improper, and the city even, they didn't defend the signage, I should say, as being adequate. And the city's entire defense was there's no laws in Manitoba saying we have to do things right. And I've even gotten rulings from that right out of Queen's Bench and Traffic Court in Manitoba, where they say, well, there's no laws in Manitoba saying that the city has to follow any kind of standard when putting up signs. And we've seen cases where the city has crossed the line, but then they make it next to impossible to actually get court rulings to enforce the law. So the law is only as good as its enforcement. And for example, in 2004, Manitoba changed the law for traffic court judges. Now, to be a traffic court judge, you have to be 18 years of age and a resident of Manitoba. There's no requirements to have any legal training. My first day of law school, I was more legally trained than the people that are deciding these court cases. So when I go in the traffic court, what I've seen is it's just a dog's breakfast. And now, as of 2018, we're the only province that changed the law banning, or I should say, taking away the right to appeal traffic tickets to an actual judge. And every other province, if you don't agree with the traffic court, whether it be what we call them a justice of the peace or an actual judge, you can appeal it to an upper level court. In Manitoba, they took away that right as of 2018.
Well, so you're saying that the people that are judging you if you were right or wrong on your tickets aren't even law students. They're just 18, 19-year-olds going in there and judging people and giving them tickets without any experience whatsoever in the justice system?
Most of them are clerks that in many cases just worked in the prosecutor's office as clerks and then got that job.
So here's a question that everyone seems to have all the time. There's many times I've seen a radar enforcement vehicle smashed up. And you see them all over the city. Why is that? And to me, Chris, you can answer both these questions at one time. To me, safety, if it's about safety, I think, is pulling over a person. If a person's speeding, there's obviously a reason they're speeding. They may have drugs in the car. They may be intoxicated. They may be running from a crime or doing something illegal. How does a photo or radar ticket have anything to do with safety when they're not pulling you over? They're just sending you a ticket and collecting money. As a matter of fact, they don't even care who's driving the vehicle.
I would agree with you 100%. And that's a fundamental issue with photo enforcement in and of itself. And that's why I'm against photo enforcement. I believe the speeding should be dangerous. And what I mean by that is that it should mean something to be stopped for speeding and to get a ticket for speeding. It should actually mean you were doing something dangerous and that you got caught and the person was identified. And what we're seeing more and more of, and that's in this industry in general, this isn't specific to Manitoba, is they're treating traffic tickets almost like civil cases and infractions, and they're trying to almost turn it into like bylaw tickets where they're not important, they're just mass produced, and it's just like a tax on driving. And that takes away the entire essence of the fact that speeding should be dangerous. Like, to get us pulled over for a speeding ticket should be dangerous. And this speaks to a bigger issue, though. We see this with both police and photo enforcement, that most of the people getting stopped for speeding by police or getting mailed photo tickets, they're not actually driving dangerously. And to go back to that case I argued against the city for improper speed limit signage, that was one of the city's defenses against the improper signage, is they're not putting the public at risk with improper signage because the speed limits are improperly set. And they argue, and I remember the city lawyer wrote it on city letterhead, and he said speed limits in Winnipeg are set by non-technical people. So he's arguing that speed limits setting is political, not based on engineering or safety. And when the the engineering board asked the city to back up its claims, they submitted a slew of their own engineering reports showing where the speed limit should be raised or in many cases not lowered based on their own engineering assessment, and local councillors overrode the engineering assessments. And the location they most highlighted was Grant Avenue, which is 20% of all the tickets in the city, according to a CBC study that I was actually part of. And the city itself argued that using inadequate speed limit signage on Grant is not a safety concern because the speed limit on Grant does not reflect the safe driving environment of that road. And they had 3 engineering reports backing up their claim, all saying Grant should be 60. So the city's arguing itself that we're not putting the public at risk, we're just finding a way to tax people.
So if I become mayor of the city, which I probably will, how can I change photo enforcement? How long do they have a contract with the city for? And where does the money go? Does the money go back to help us fix our roads? All these tickets that people are getting and all this money that they're spending, where does it go? Also, how about weekends? How about holidays, Christmas and Thanksgiving and all those days that they're giving us tickets where there's clearly no workers? I mean, so clearly this is a money scam. This is
Yeah.
not about safety. And I would agree with you on that, but I mean, you put it in a better form than I ever will. And if you can maybe touch on some of those, yeah, where does the money go? And
Well, they've
how
got
long
a
is the
very
contract?
they've got a very ingenious way of hiding that. So to give you a little bit of a breakdown, let's take a ticket for 10 over as our benchmark. So a 10 over ticket is $181.50. But if you look in the Traffic Act, the Highway Traffic Act actually specifies that that ticket is $7.70 per kilometer over. So your ticket is $77. So where's the other 111 or so dollars come from? So what they've done is the city gets the $77, the province tax on the 111 and something, and then and what they do is they charge it through like the victims of crime fees. They charge a flat $50 justice fee just for having had your right to go to court, even though 95% of people don't actually go to court. They just charge you a $50 flat fee, and they charge you a 45% fee that they just call costs. That's got no actual link to anything. They just call it their costs. They scoop all that money out, which amounts to like 2/3 to 3/4 of the tickets, and then they only report the $77 as their actual income. So then they take that $77, pay all their expenses out of it, and that's how they skew it to look like Photo Radar is only making $3 or $4 million a year when it's actually making about $4 million a month.
4 million a
And
month. And where does that money go, Chris?
well, the city claims that they just dump it into the police force, into the police budget. That's their claim. That's what the Highway Traffic Act says. But it's very hard to trace because the majority of it just goes to the province. So you really don't know where it's going. Is what it boils down to.
For school zones, I know there's been a couple of accidents in school zones where children have been hurt. Um, is there a better way of protecting children in school zones? I know you and I have had a conversation about this, and everyone wants safety for their children. I mean, if I'm running for mayor, my main priority is for a safer city, for a better future for our children and grandchildren. What can we do to make school zones safe other than photo radar?
Well, this is actually touches on my earlier point about how photo enforcement it often comes at the cost of safety. So when you see issues like the city relying on photo radar as a budget line item, what it turns into is the city focuses on things like speed reductions and things that will generate more ticket revenue, as opposed to actual safety improvements, which take a backbench and the city will fight very hard to stop or not put in. So, to give you the most classic example, eye level lights at pedestrian crosswalks. So, I've been checking every I wrote a 73-page report on this that the law school actually published on their website, and the Free Press and CBC both covered it. But the eye level lights at crosswalks, we have them at about a third of crosswalks. Now, every child pedestrian fatality since 2010 has occurred in a pedestrian corridor, and the city's own engineering reports link those pedestrian deaths to the lack of those eye level lights. And that's 2 children killed in pedestrian corridors, and I'd say about 10 to 12 adults. And the city still is refusing to put up those eye level lights, even though they cost a fraction of how much these other pet projects they have cost. So there's an example. As another one, we have 173 missing school zone signs in Winnipeg that I'm currently tracking.
Say that
So
again. Say that
there's
again.
173 missing school zone signs in Winnipeg that I'm tracking. That most of them gets knocked down by snow plows. Sometimes Hydro will change the light standard. They'll tie the sign to the base of the pole for the city to remount it. The city won't. It'll just fall off and they get picked up in spring cleanup. I've given the city that list. That dates back to 2012 is when I did the initial assessment. Councillor Harvey Smith, who's now passed, actually took my side on that, took the list and told the traffic department he wants them to fix those signs. The Free Press did a whole story on this back in 2022, and the city's holding out. As another example, we have 322 missing playground zone signs that I tracked. The city has these lists, but they outright refuse to replace the signs.
So missing playground zone signs, the most important out of all, telling motorists that there's a playground ahead and they should slow down or whatever the case may be, and no signs are completely missing, not replaced.
That's right. So
Wow.
I can give you an example. Do you know Bronx Park Community Center at Kimberly and Henderson?
Right.
Okay, so it's in your area, my area too. So that is a community center with a playground. So it should have playground zone signs on Henderson Highway. The northbound signs are both intact. The southbound is the side that's actually adjacent to the community center. Those signs used to be just south of Kimberly. The right side sign got taken down around 2013 when Hydro changed the light standard. They tied the playground zone sign and the route marker to the base of the pole. The city came and reinstalled a brand new route marker and never put the playground zone sign back. They just took it, scrapped it, never put it back. The left side sign sat there for a couple more years as the only sign. A snowplow hit it. It was bent in a perfect U, lying in the middle of that boulevard for about 6 months through the course of a whole winter. It got picked up in spring cleanup, and for the last, we're looking at about 8 or 9 years, there hasn't been any sign there.
That's crazy. I mean, that's the most important is, safety around playground zones. If it was about safety, they put those signs where they belong so we could save kids' lives as they're playing in those playground zones. Somebody asked a question from the comments. And I want you to try to understand and maybe answer this question to the best of your ability. Somebody says, I don't understand. Why don't we drive the speed limit and it doesn't matter? So what do you say to that? I mean, if people are driving the speed limit, great, but people are speeding, people are breaking the law, people are doing crazy things when they're driving, putting other motorists at risk. So why don't you give me a full conclusion on your thoughts?
On that particular comment, I would say that if everybody did the speed limit, they would just lower the speed limit further because that's what we're seeing. When they don't generate enough ticket revenue, we saw it in 2008 with the construction zones. They expanded the speed reductions to apply all day and night with or without workers. We saw it in 2014 with the 30K school zones. We're seeing it on many major roads like Marion is an example. So the city's just, if there's not people getting tickets that are giving pushback, the city is just going to keep lowering the limits until there's enough, until they keep that pushback at an equilibrium of what they can bear. So it's not as simple as just, follow the speed limit. Now, people that are getting caught, look at the locations of the cameras. Many of them are known. And roads like Grant, people are being caught because they're driving with the flow of traffic, and which is actually the safest thing you can be doing. That's the Solomon curve of researched and documented in 1963, shows that as you deviate from the standard flow of the traffic on a road, your crash potential increases, both going faster but also slower than the flow of traffic. So most people are not driving dangerously to go slower than that natural flow of traffic. And that's why we see so many tickets on these roads where the speed limit just doesn't reflect the safe actions of a reasonable person. And
So he answered your question there in the best of his ability, and his answer is really straightforward. And you see this happening in the city of Winnipeg now. So what they're trying to do is lower speed limits in the city of Winnipeg everywhere. So Chris has hit that right on, and that's exactly what they're doing. So if you're driving the speed limit, great, you're not getting a ticket, good for you. But if they're not generating the revenue that they need to generate, then they just lower the speed limit so they can give you tickets. It's really sad that this is happening. Chris, I think this is my final question. We got to get on with the second part of the show. My final question is, so you get a speeding ticket or you get a ticket going through a playground zone or a red light or whatever the case may be. How do you fight a ticket when they have a picture of your speed or you going through a red light? How does anyone win fighting a ticket like that?
Well, you see, this is the problem that we see, that you really can't fight these tickets because I can tell you we had issues on Grant Avenue with the tickets being grossly inaccurate. We had radar experts and a whole voir dire, it's called, trial laid out. And what happens is if the Crown thinks they're going to lose, they'll just stay the one case and keep ticketing everyone else. And I've seen cases where I've lost, even though the law was solidly on my side. And I remember a case I did where I argued know your zone, the tickets were illegal. And I lost because, in my opinion, traffic court doesn't follow the law. So when it went to appeal, the Crown realized that I had a rock solid case. So then they stayed that one case. Staying means that they're dropping it, they're not going to fight. Well, they only stayed once you hire a lawyer for like $20,000. So, tickets can be you can issue as many illegal tickets as you want, knowing that it costs more to fight them than it's worth to the individuals. The only thing I would say, though, is that when people plead not guilty, they often half the ticket. They just half them to keep the courts from being backlogged. That, for many people, is the best deal you're going to get.
Just plead guilty.
Well, no, plead not guilty and at least make the Crown offer you a deal so you don't backlog the courts.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can give you another example. Like in Section 63 of the Provincial Offences Act, brought in as part of this 2018 change I was alluding to or talking about, you don't even have the right to cross-examine the cop anymore. So you get a ticket, the cop says that you made an illegal left turn, you say you didn't, you don't even have the right to cross-examine that police officer in court anymore. They took that away in 2018.
It seems like we're losing our rights more and more every single day, and they're taking it away from us. You give them a little bit and they take a lot. That's why we need change in the city of Winnipeg, the province of Manitoba, and Canada in general. You need your rights and your freedoms, and once you lose those, you're not getting them back. We need to fight. We need to stand together. We need to make a difference. And if we don't, we end up in this situation that Chris was talking about. You can't even ask questions to a police officer that gave you a ticket that is your God-given right to defend what you did wrong. And now they're not even allowing you to do that. Yes, I would call that kind of like a kangaroo court. Indeed. Chris, you were a brilliant young man, and I hope in the future that you will be on my side, because definitely a master of law student with a law degree for sure, and I love what you've said and what you've brought to the table, and I hope that I can have you back on the show again. As a matter of fact, I hope I can have you with me at the city of Winnipeg when I win this next election. So, Chris, if you want to just say something to finish things off, I just want to thank you for taking time to be here. We got to move on with the show because we are going to talk about something else that's very dirty at City Hall, and that's permits. So that's a different topic altogether. But again, thank you for being on the show, Chris. You could just give your final statement, and then we will talk to you again. Thanks again to Chris.
Yep, thank you. And I guess my final statement is just that issues with road safety, enforcement, all of this, they're so deep. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, that most people are only able to see it at the superficial level. And it takes such a deep understanding and so much research to flush so much of this out. And I just hope more people take the time to look into things and see the details and understand what's going on. And I welcome the chance to talk about it in the future, but it's often hard to, in a podcast or on a media interview and things like that, to actually flush out these kind of details. So thank you for giving this the time, and good luck with your podcast, and hopefully we'll be at City Hall together.
You know what? One day we're doing a press conference this Friday at City Hall. I would love to have you join me at the press conference. There's a lot of people that come, and you could tell your part on what the city is doing wrong and how we're going to fix it, because that's what you need when you become mayor. You need professionals in every area who know the law in that area. And as a mayor, you can only delegate that kind of stuff to a guy like Chris, who can, defend the city against photo radar and defend the city against people getting tickets that really are not legal in the full means of being legal. And yes, you could follow the law and not speed and get away with it. But like Chris said, in the long run, they're going to come after you in different ways to get your money. We pay taxes, and it's unfortunate that a city doesn't respect the taxpayer and continues to go after their wallet and continues to go after their bank accounts and does it completely in the wrong manner. Thank you again, Chris, for being here with us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more right here on the Mike Vogiatzakis Show right after this.
Winnipeg, real change doesn't happen on its own. It happens when ordinary people stand together and demand something better. The Mike Vogiatzakis for Mayor campaign is powered by the people of Winnipeg, not political insiders or powerful special interest groups. Your donation will help purchase signs, print campaigns, materials, reach more voters, and carry our message into every neighborhood across the city. Every contribution, large or small, brings us one step closer to a safer, stronger, and more accountable Winnipeg. Please donate today at MikeForMayor2026.com. Nothing changes until something changes. Real change now. Authorized by the official agent for Michael Vogiatzakis.
Well, once again, welcome back to the Mike Vogiatzakis for Mayor Show. I'm Brad Wilder. Chris Swareda just on the program. Very smart guy, Mike. Very, very smart guy. And I'm glad somebody's getting this, photo radar ticket thing figured out and how the city earns quite a chunk of money, I'm told. $4 million a month? I don't even want to get into it, because if I do, I got to get my bell. I'll have to start hitting my bell all the time. But, you got the right guy there. I think Chris is somebody who obviously knows the system inside and out. And he's also a guy who can probably fix the system to make it more reasonable, unless the city needs that $4 million a month, right? Yeah, okay.
If it's going into the police budget, then why are the police constantly crying for more money? I mean, $4 million a month on top of what the budget already is, which is the highest out of all departments, is the police. So interesting, and good to have a guy like that on who's so educated. Obviously, a young lawyer who's going to go places in law. So the next big thing to talk about is permits. Permits are a big thing in the city of Winnipeg, and probably next to buses and next to about 10 other things, one of the biggest issues out there for people. And we see businesses closing down every day of the week in the city of Winnipeg. Another one just closed downtown the other day. And believe it or not, Brad, you left the city just in time. Yesterday, another stabbing on Portage Avenue, not far from where Brother Kyriakis was killed at the Cork and Flame. The dollar store, 22-year-old security guard approached somebody who was stealing from the store, and in return was stabbed. He's okay, from what I understand. It wasn't critical, but it's getting so bad in the city that you can't even stop somebody from stealing without getting stabbed. And you kind of wonder, do you even approach anyone in the city of Winnipeg? 4 years under Scott Gillingham's ruling, and this city, and I'm going to say it again, is turned into Gotham City. And, when you go deeper downtown, it's even scarier. And, I went for a ride downtown the other day, and I was by myself, and I had the window rolled down, and a guy approached my car and almost jumped in my vehicle. And, I drove away quickly, but if I didn't, he would have got into the vehicle. And I was just taking pictures around the area, for the shows that we do and stuff like that. And it was a pretty scary situation. I mean, he could have reached in and stabbed me. It was totally unpredictable. He just came charging at the car and literally dove in the window.
Well, Mike, we hear constant complaints about crime in Winnipeg. Does everybody carry a knife these days, or what? I mean, I can't believe the amount of stabbings. Stabbings are outranking shootings at this point, I do believe. It sounds to me like we've got a knife problem. I also want to mention that we can't continue to necessarily, stack all the blame onto the former or the mayor, current mayor. I mean, there's a revolving door at the justice system. How much does the mayor actually have involved with that? Because does he even have any power to control that revolving door? Because that's the door that needs to be shut down, isn't it, Mike?
Well, here's the situation on that, Brad. You're right. That's a provincial matter, federal matter. But the thing is, the bottom line is the mayor talks with the police board and encourages the police board to encourage the police officers to fight crime in any way he thinks that, or she thinks that he should fight crime. Now, the mayor does have the loudest voice in the city. So if you're having problems with your city, if your city's falling apart, you want to talk to the provincial government, to the federal government, and not only ask, but demand change, demand a safer city, demand a justice system that works. Brad, there's nobody more on fire with the justice system than I am.
What do you do when your premier isn't willing to bend on that either? He's just going with the flow.
You got to push, and you got to push, and you got to demand, and then you got to get your people behind you, the citizens of the city, to do the same and make enough noise. I mean, go on strike for a day if you have to, and stop everything until the federal government and the provincial government finally stop the rotating doors at the court system. Kyriakis is dead because of that. I'm fighting to be mayor of the city because I want change. But, to be a mayor of a city, you can't do it by yourself. You need thousands and thousands of people on board with you so you can make change together. And this isn't about me. It's about the citizens of the city. So when the citizens want change, we act together we form a group together, and we continue to go after the provincial and federal government until change happens in the city of Winnipeg. The city of Winnipeg and the citizens deserve a safe city, Brad.
All right, Mike. So listen, we're talking about constant complaints, citizens, homeowners, business owners. All leads back to permits, of course. Before we get to the permit part of tonight's broadcast, let's talk a little bit about what Leanne Beth had to say on a question, maybe more of a statement. And I'm kind of hoping you can address this because this isn't the first week that she's brought this up. And you may have already addressed it and she maybe didn't hear your reply. Maybe she didn't get a reply in terms of it being a comment back online. But she says, we have over 800 people who are disgruntled with a city department, a specific city department. How do we meet with you, Mike? Are you in any position right now to meet with these kind of people to take up their complaints, or is that something you got to wait to do to be sitting in that chair first?
You know, I would definitely meet with people. Come out to the meet and greet. Come out and, to the Pony Corral. Talk to me. Tell me what your problem is. Tell me what's wrong with the city department that you're having problems with. And as your future mayor of Winnipeg, I will be on top of it. Listen, I'm fighting the system at City Hall. I'm there to not join their system, but to fight against what they're doing. And I'm not part of the status quo. I'm against the status quo. So I'm going to be a mayor that's going to stand up for the people. And there is so much wrong with City Hall that a guy would have to go, where do I start? There's so many things wrong with so many departments. But leave a message for me at mikeformayor2026.com with your phone number, and I will call you and we can discuss your issue and maybe get together with many of those people and talk about what the problem is and see how we can better solve this problem in the city of Winnipeg. I mean, 700 people is a lot of people.
800, yeah. She got to add another 100 to that. All right, Mike.
I need you to know that I'm a guy that listens and I care. So if I haven't answered your question or if I missed it, I'm sorry, but I do care and I will answer your question and I will speak with you if you leave me your number.
All right, Mike. So we hear constant complaints, as I mentioned, from homeowners and business owners, all about permits and bylaw enforcement in Winnipeg. So what are people telling you off the record, Mike?
Clearly, people are telling me the system is too slow, too confusing, too difficult to navigate. They apply for a permit and wait without receiving meaningful updates. I've been through it. I've had to live it. It's terrible. They are transferred between departments and departments. One employee tells you one thing, another employee tells you something completely different. Requirements sometimes appear after an application has already been submitted. Small business owners can be left paying rent on an empty building because they're not allowed to use it until they get the permits and the occupancy permit. And I know somebody is going through that right now. They've leased the building. It's almost $10,000 a month. It's been 4 months of battling it out with City Hall, and they are ready to go broke before their business even opens. $40,000 into it already, plus water and air conditioning and utilities. And businesses are frustrated. Homeowners can be fined for work completed years earlier by a previous worker, Brad. So you buy a home, a previous owner did work on it, and the city of Winnipeg comes and fines you for the work a previous owner did. Can you believe that? People are not asking us to eliminate safety standards. Everyone wants the city to be a safer city, a city where people aren't going to get hurt. So yes, it's reasonable to have permits in place, but they're asking City Hall to become responsible and accountable. That's what they're asking City Hall to do, and be consistent with the permits. And that is not happening. And I want to share a quick story with you. We were trying to get a permit to operate a building that we got for our mayoral campaign. And Todd, one of our guys who's on our team, spent hours at City Hall. He shares a story with me where he's standing with two ladies on a Friday with blue Bomber jerseys on, one with her face painted with Bomber colors. And the permit said permit office right there. And Todd was asking questions, and they didn't have a clue how to answer any of the questions other than saying, well, here's a card, try this person. And that's what citizens are talking about. They're frustrated. They've had enough. And you know what? Our campaign team has been through it, and now we experienced it ourselves.
Mike, why are permits even necessary in the first place? What's the deal behind that? Just another cash cow that we're talking about with
permits,
photo radar or what?
It's a little different than photo radar. Permits actually protect public safety, and that's important. You don't want somebody building a house that he's going to rent out to somebody or she, and then the house collapses because it hasn't met codes or hasn't been built properly. The snow or the rain or whatever, the amount of weight that's on the roof. They help ensure that electrical work, plumbing, construction, and building obviously meets proper safety standards. And I understand that. I will not compromise public safety as a mayor. I will stand for public safety. But protecting public safety does not require City Hall to bury people in red tape, keep them waiting indefinitely, or treat honest mistakes like a criminal offense. And that is so wrong. We can protect the public and still treat people fairly. And that's what we need to start doing at City Hall, treating people fairly. Because who's your boss? You're our boss. The public, that's who we answer to. And it seems like sometimes you walk into City Hall or you walk into a public office and you're treated like an outsider. Don't ask me that question. What right do you have to ask me that question? And sometimes it's not only you offended, but you kind of walk out of there scratching your head going, really?
What's the biggest problem with the current permit system, Mike? Is it money related? Is it just overlordish? What are we talking about here?
Brad, I really think there's no clear ownership of applications. People put an application in, and where's that application? People can be sent from department to department, like I talked about, and nobody seems to be responsible for delivering the final answer. And that's what people are waiting for, is the final answer. When several departments are involved, the applicant is left trying to coordinate City Hall. This is really backwards. City Hall should coordinate City Hall. And that's what we need to do, is get it together where one department takes care of things. You know who's in charge of your permit. You know who to call. And this crazy thing about calling 311 and waiting for an answer is going to come to an end when I become a mayor. And we put together our hub that we're going to put together, our communication hub that's going to stop all this.
Well, we're just about to talk about what would you do differently as a mayor. So it starts in a lot of different places because day one, you've got a lot to combat, don't you?
Yeah, there's so much to do. I will introduce a one applicant, one contact system. That's really important. And then, you come to the funeral home and you deal with me, Mike, the funeral director, and I'm going to deal with you the whole time because I'm the funeral director you met with. I will introduce that system that will go into place. Every permit application will have one assigned city contact who is responsible for helping you move that application through every requirement that this department asks. Applicants will receive a plain language checklist. Get that, Brad? Plain language, something you can understand, explaining exactly what documents are required. They will be able to see what stage their application has been reached, which department is reviewing it, and whether anything is missing. No more guessing under my plan. No more chasing 5 different departments. No more applications sitting somewhere without an explanation, like at the bottom of the pile when you tick somebody off at City Hall.
So obviously you set the standards, you set the standard operating procedure basically of how you want this to run, but would you establish deadlines as well, or how does that work?
Yes. Here's what I would do, Brad. Within 2 business days, the city should confirm an application has been received and identify the assigned contact. That's a big thing. So now they've received your application. Now you know who your contact is, so you can ask questions. The applicant should never be told whether the application is complete or exactly what information is missing. And they're not being told. We need to tell them right away, look, this is what's missing on your application. You need to give us this information so we can speed up your permit. Every class of permit will have a published service standard. If the city cannot meet that standard, the application will receive an application and an updated completion date and access to a supervisor. Access to a supervisor, that's the big word. Safety reviews cannot be rushed, but applications cannot be allowed to disappear into a black hole under the desk somewhere. I will also publish the city's actual performance every month so Winnipeggers can see whether standards are being met and whether you're being serviced properly.
Okay, so we're going to get into small renovations, straightforward kind of applications. Still on that big delay system, or are they going to move them along quicker now?
We will establish a fast track process for simple, low risk permits. Somebody wants to build a deck do basic renovations at home. A sign replacement or straightforward business alteration should not be treated like a construction or a major commercial development. And that's what's happening. Applications that meet a standard checklist should move through the system and the reviews quickly. Qualified professionals should also be able to certify appropriate technical components subject to city audits and inspections. That allows city staff to concentrate on completed projects and serious safety concerns. And that's really important.
Okay, Mike, let's see here. So, people are saying a lot, and it's not just about the permits or the photo radar, but they're saying a lot about bylaw enforcement in general. It sounds like, well, is there a bylaw enforcement problem? Then maybe that's the question we should be asking.
There is, and I've dealt with the bylaw enforcement issues, and I'm going to share one of those stories at the press conference on Friday. Many people feel enforcement is complaint-driven, inconsistent, and too focused on punishment, and it's true. So here's what happens. A neighbor, a competitor, a disgruntled person can file complaints, and suddenly a homeowner or business owner is forced to defend themselves. Legitimate complaints must be investigated, I understand, but the system must also recognize repeated or unsupported complaints that come in all the time. Enforcement should be based on evidence and risk, not personal disputes. And that's like you and I we're neighbors, we have an argument with each other, and you call enforcement and put a complaint in, and then next day there's an enforcement officer knocking on my door and I'm guilty before I even open the door.
Yeah, that's just a crappy place to be, isn't it? Would you stop bylaw officers from issuing fines, Mike? Is that something you have the power to do?
No, I think, you're always going to have to give people fines. Serious safety hazards, for example, deliberate violations and repeat offenders must face, firm enforcement. That's the bottom line. If you keep breaking the law over and over and you're putting people's lives in danger or even your own, enforcement has to step in and put down the law. But for an honest first-time violation that does not create an immediate danger, the first objective should be education and compliance. The officer should explain the violation in plain language, identify the specific rule, explain how to correct it, and provide a reasonable deadline, where that's kind of happening right now, but not really. If the owner refuses to comply or repeatedly breaks the rules, enforcement should be escalated to the next level. That is a firm and fair and responsible way of dealing with citizens.
Did I just hear you right? Are you proposing a warning first policy, a warning, or what? There's got to be something there that says, no warning first, you're going now. I mean, you're done.
Yeah, Brad, it's basic, man. I mean, when public safety is not at immediate risk, my policy would be to educate the people first. Educate them, sit there, talk to them, tell them what they need to do, tell them they need to fix it. A written warning would happen second. So second, you're going to get a written warning. So we're still being lenient. A reasonable opportunity to comply. Penalties for, deliberate and dangerous or repeat violations would definitely happen. If there's an immediate danger to residents, employees, or the public at large, the city must act immediately. No doubt about that. But City Hall should not lead with threats and fines when someone has made an honest, correctable mistake.
Mike, how would you deal with complaints that are malicious, for example? I mean, people are going to call you up and go, hey, Mr. Mayor, or they're going to talk to your staff and have, major things to say. And how are you going to deal with that?
I think every enforcement action should require a documented inspection and evidence of an actual violation. That's what I think. The person accused should be told what rule they are allegedly violating and what evidence supports the finding. Repeated complaints that produce no evidence of a violation should be identified so the system cannot weaponize against the neighbor or a competing business. And that makes sense. At the same time, the identity of a legitimate complaint must be protected where the law requires it. The goal is to prevent harassment without discouraging people from reporting genuine danger. You can't be more fair than that.
So, Mike, what happens when somebody disagrees now with an inspector, for example?
Well, there must be a simple and affordable review process. No doubt about that. A resident or business owner should be able to request a prompt second review by a senior officer who was not responsible for the original decision. So you get a second person now who gives his opinion or her. They should not have to hire a lawyer simply to receive an explanation or challenge what the ticket is for. Every enforcement notice should clearly explain the rule, the evidence, the required correction, the deadline, and the right to request a review.
Mike, people say, they shouldn't automatically be treated as though they're personally committed to the violation, right? So you're going to create some sort of a practical alliance there or compliance pathway for innocent purchasers?
I think people should not automatically be treated as though they personally committed the violation. We will create a practical compliance pathway for innocent purchasers.
So that would be somebody somebody purchased a property and discovered old work completed without permits. Is that right?
Exactly. The work will still have to be inspected and made safe, but the city should, help the new owner correct it without immediately imposing, punitive penalties for something done by a previous owner. Safety must come first, I understand, but fairness must come at the same level because it's not you that caused the problem. You bought a house, you spent all kinds of money, the house was inspected, it looked good, then you need to do some changes, and all of a sudden they go, oh, there wasn't a permit for that. And then they punish the guy or the girl or the homeowner because something's wrong with the house that they bought that somebody else made a mistake on.
I don't see a lot of bylaw bobs hitting residential streets and neighborhoods in the sense of something's wrong with your house. But what we do see a lot of, Mike, and I want to know how you'd help someone who wants to open a business and is thrown into that whirlwind of chaos from cameras to proper signage to all this nonsense that can get a new small business busted in a way that it just sounds like a cash cow.
Being a business person, I will do a lot for small businesses and stand up for small businesses, make sure that they're protected. I understand a small business, a mom and pop business, a business just trying to grow needs to be protected, and they need that lenient space to do so because they're running with limited funds most of the time. Before someone signs a commercial lease, they should be able to request a clear review from the city, and that should happen all the time. That review should explain the permit use of the property, whether a change of use is required, what the occupancy requires, what the applicant must do, like major upgrades to be necessary. People should not sign a lease paying rent and then only discover they need thousands of dollars in renovations. I also want small business permit desk staffed by people who understand both city requirements and the realities of opening up a business. City Hall should help responsible people invest in Winnipeg and create jobs, meaning that we should have business people who've operated businesses, who've started businesses behind the desk of City Hall. So when you're going to get a business permit, that person behind that desk knows how to guide you, how to protect you, and most of all, guide you in the right direction.
Mike, some people are going to say, this means being soft on enforcement. It's not necessarily soft on enforcement. It's really becoming a matter of educating properly, isn't it? It's having people understand what they're going to have to go through when you open a small business in the city of Winnipeg. And maybe that's not, is it not spoken clearly enough in the city bylaws and the city, there must be a manual, right?
Yeah, you would think there was a manual to open up a business and to take over a building, and then you get into that building, and that happened with us at a couple of our funeral home locations where you get in there and all of a sudden, you're not getting a permit because they're telling you that you got to do this and that, and then you're scratching your head going, how am I going to come up with the money to do this? So, having an inspector come in prior to signing a lease would benefit you to know what you're doing, how much you're going to spend. Can you afford this? Should you get into this business? I think there's nothing soft about requiring serious violators to comply, Brad. Dangerous building.
Were you a serious violator when they came about your video cameras? I'm just asking, is that serious enough to get somebody a fine of what, $1,200?
I want to talk about that because a lot of people ask me that question all the time about that fine, about the cameras. And, most commercial businesses in the city of Winnipeg don't have a clue that they need a permit to put a security camera up. to protect your staff, to protect your building, to protect your personal property and the public at large. I can't tell you how many times a week the police come to our location and ask to review our cameras. So in come these two enforcement officers, and they get into a heated conversation with me about a ticket they came to give me. And as they got into this heated conversation, and were basically bullying me and kind of threatening me at the same time, I looked up at the supervisor and I said, you know, you're being recorded. There's a camera right up there. And he basically said, this effing meeting is over. And they walked out. And that was the end of that meeting with those enforcement officers. But guess what? 3 days later, I got a ticket for not having a permit to have a camera up. And that's how that came about. And that ticket's at $1,000. And then they tried to double the ticket, even though they've given me a ticket already. They tried to give me a second ticket, which they did, by the way, for another $1,000, so $2,000. So is enforcement out of control? Yes. You know, they could bully you, they could push you around, and you really have no resources to go to. You phone their supervisor. No, that was a supervisor you were talking to. Yeah, but nobody else has permits for cameras. Oh, just worry about yourself. No. The law of the land of the law is everybody follows the law equally. Like we were talking earlier, you're speeding, you get a speeding ticket, right? You're violating a law. Everybody should get a ticket for violating the same law. So why should I be the only business to get a ticket for having cameras up when no other, I would say probably 90% of businesses don't have a permit to have their cameras up, and everyone has cameras up. And I have to ask myself the question, well, the city of Winnipeg's been putting tons of cameras up lately. Are they getting permits?
Great question. Now, obviously, you always drive by a construction site, you see 10 guys there and one guy working. Employee accountability is something that I think is coming to light now in terms of you becoming a mayor. And how do you plan on, getting things back in order with resources and staff?
I think, what's going to help us with that is we will publish a monthly permit and enforcement accountability report. And I think that will be important. It will show application volumes, processing times, missed services standards, inspection, wait times, appeal and outcomes. Senior management will be responsible for explaining unexpected delays and presenting a corrective plan. Applicants are held accountable for meeting deadlines and following the rules. City Hall must be accountable for providing timely and consistent services. And people always ask that question, right, Brad? What's that question?
How much is your plan going to cost taxpayers, Mike? And I tell you, maybe you take it out of the $4 million from the radar stuff per month.
I think many of these changes aren't about money. They're about organization and accountability and using existing resources more effectively. And that is the bottom line. One contact per application does not necessarily mean hiring new persons for every applicant. It means assigning responsibility instead of making residents coordinate multiple departments themselves. We can do stuff like fast tracking simple applications will free experienced staff holders to deal with more complex roles. Better advice will reduce incomplete applications, repeat submissions, and unnecessary applications. Before adding significant new costs, I will require a complete operational review showing where staff are assigned, where applications become stalled, and which steps can help simplify this whole process or which could be eliminated to simplify it.
Well, Mike, we're sitting here at about 10 after 9 or 10 after 10 in Manitoba time. We're about halfway done, I'm thinking. Is that fair to say on this second half?
I think we're more than halfway, and I know people don't like to stay on any longer than they should. Maybe we'll answer these next few questions, and
how about rapid fire questions, and you kind of give us the yay or nay? Maybe, this first one isn't a yay or nay kind of question. What are you going to do during your first 100 days, Mike? Quickly now.
So, do you think you can? Do you think you can actually come up with something in the first 100 days? I'm going to put my staff to work, and what we're going to do is during my first 100 days, I will order a complete review of Winnipeg's permit by law enforcement system. We will bring together homeowners, small business owners, contractors, developers, architects, engineers, city employees and community representatives. We will identify unnecessary duplication, establish realistic standards, and determine which low-risk permits can be fast-tracked. I think I will introduce a warning for first compliance policy for non-dangerous first-time violations. We will begin developing a one applicant, one contact system, which we talked about. That's very important. We will also review outdated bylaws, and there's lots of outdated bylaws and requirements that no longer serve a clear safety to the community or any purpose whatsoever.
All right, I just scanned ahead. A couple more questions to get through tonight, Mike, that I know the public wants to know about. So what's your message to Winnipeg homeowners and business owners tonight? Is it the same message or is it slightly different?
My message is simple. Permits should protect people, not punish people. That's a big thing. Enforcement should correct real problems, not create unnecessary ones. If you are acting responsible and trying to follow the rules, City Hall should help you succeed. That's the bottom line. If you create a serious danger and you're deliberately ignoring the rules, repeatedly refusing to comply, the city will take firm action. Under my leadership, Winnipeg will have a permit and enforcement system that will be timely, transparent, consistent, and fair. We will protect the public safety, we will respect homeowners, we will support small businesses, and we will make City Hall work for all people once again.
So if someone watching tonight has dealt with this system, what would you like to hear from them, Mike?
Tell us what happened. What permit were you applying for? How long did you wait? Were the instructions clear? Could you understand them? Were you given opportunity to correct the problem? Or were you immediately threatened with penalties? I want to hear good experiences as well as the bad experiences. Real reform begins with listening to the people who have actually gone through the system, Brad.
All right, Mike, before we close tonight off, I want to talk about electric scooters. A Blue Bombers volunteer was recently seriously injured after being struck by someone riding an electric scooter on the sidewalk outside Princess Auto Stadium. Now, I know the public's concerned. We see them zipping up and down the streets. Some of these kids are just kids. They're not even 15 years old. They're 12 and 13, and they're running around without helmets and zipping up and down the place. I mean, we used to do that as kids too, on our bikes and on our skateboards. And, we didn't necessarily have scooters, and they sure weren't electric that make them go like 80 kilometers an hour. But I watch these kids take off, and then they got these new electric motor like dirt bikes that they're ripping around on, and they're not licensed, they're not insured, and somebody hits somebody or they hit a car and scratch it, dent it. Where's the insurance? And how concerned are you as a Winnipeg mayor going to be when the lawsuits start coming in because there's no law around any of this?
I'm extremely concerned, Brad. This was not a minor accident. A longtime Blue Bomber volunteer was helping direct fans after a game when he was struck on the sidewalk. According to the Winnipeg Free Press, he required emergency neck surgery. Can you imagine? Emergency neck surgery. Had a titanium rod inserted into his spine, suffered 5 compressed vertebrae, and could face months of rehab. My thoughts are with this gentleman. My prayers are with this gentleman, his family, and everyone supporting him through his recovery. I hope somebody starts up a GoFundMe page for him to help this volunteer out. But we cannot stand and simply express our sympathy and then wait for the next person to be hit. And more people are going to be hit. This is a firm warning, and it is directly in front of us. If City Hall and the province do not act, someone could lose their life. Someone will lose their life.
Mike, was this an isolated incident?
No. In July, a 69-year-old Winnipeg man was struck by an electric scooter as he stepped off a transit bus on Main Street at Broadway. The impact reportedly threw him in the air and onto the pavement. People are regularly reporting scooters traveling quickly along sidewalks, passing pedestrians without warning, riding against traffic, and moving through crowded areas. Seniors, children, people with disabilities, and passengers stepping off buses particularly are vulnerable. Sidewalks must be safe for our pedestrians. They cannot become unregulated roadways for motorized vehicles traveling at significant high speeds. You've seen it. I've seen it. Young kids without helmets, some even keeping up with traffic doing a high speed on the road.
You know, Mike, I got to ask the question, are you against electric scooters? Quick answer, yes or no, and we'll move on to the next question.
No, absolutely not.
What rules are coming from the province, Mike? Tell us about the rules.
Manitoba has passed legislation that would establish important rules. Electric scooter operators would generally have to be at least 16 years of age. Helmets would be mandatory. The maximum speed would be 25 kilometers per hour. Passengers would be prohibited on devices designed for one person only. Electric scooters should also be prohibited from sidewalks unless the sidewalk is specifically marked to permit them.
Well, Mike, when it comes to these scooters, is that something you can get on board with as the mayor?
I think scooters are fun for kids, just like bikes are fun for kids. It gives them something other to do. I'd rather see our children out on the roads having fun and being safe than being in a room locked playing video games.
Electric
I think
scooters, skateboard parks.
yeah, it just has to be a place where they're safe. They got to have helmets on, maybe elbow pads. When you're doing that kind of speed and you fall off one of those electric units, you're going to hurt yourself, and eventually someone is going to die. And then we're going to say to ourselves, why didn't we do something about this? It's our it's as parents, we need to protect our children. As citizens, we need to protect the public. So you ask yourself this question: why did this happen at the Bomber game? Why wasn't this volunteer protected? Why was this kid cruising that fast that he did that much damage to a gentleman? I think it's wrong. I think we need to change the laws. I think we need to do it right away. We need to protect not only the citizens, but the kids that are using. When you got that kind of speed, Brad, the kids are going to use it because, our younger generation, just like us, are daredevils, and they try to take things to the max. So, we can't stop them from going that fast because they're going to do it anyway. So we got to protect them and the people around them from getting hurt.
Well, gas carts have governors on them, which, govern the speed that they can cruise or go at. Same thing maybe for some of these scooters need to be implemented. They shouldn't be built for speed. You've got kids riding them, and I got to be honest with you, it's not just going to be kids riding them. The 2030 agenda the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region's trying to implement is going to force a lot of people onto scooters and public transit. And I mean, honk, honk, there's no horns on these scooters, and I'm telling you, you're going to have to pay to ride them. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I can tell you there's a lot of confusing things that are going to need to be cleaned up with not only Winnipeg, but all across this country, Mike.
Wait till I share with you in the near future the City of Winnipeg plan that's already in place right up to 2030. And you're going to be blown away.
I'm not, but somebody is.
But the viewers that are watching this will be. But we've taken up enough of your time today. Please join us tomorrow night at in Transcona. We're coming to Transcona, and we're going to be at the Pandora Inn between 6:30 and 9:30. You'll have a chance to ask questions. You could get assigned. You can sign up to volunteer. You can make a donation. Bring your checkbook or something. $25, whatever. Each amount of money we get helps us to be a step closer to becoming a team that's going to make it all the way to the mayor's chair with your help. And then again, September 1st, we're going to be at the Pony Corral. We are looking forward to coming to visit you in your neighborhood. Let us know what neighborhood you want us to come to next so we could talk to you and share our plan with you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Brad, thank you for being an incredible host. Chris, thank you for joining us. And to the viewers, share the show, follow me, and let's do this together. This is a movement that I need you to be a part of. Take care of yourselves and each other. God bless you and your families. Good night.
Good night, everybody.